So I've talked about this on the Clips channel, but Star Wars Celebration again did that thing this year where they have exclusive trailers and whatnot they show behind closed doors, then inevitably scramble when low quality versions leak online. We got that for Ahsoka, and the trailer was essentially just a remix of the one showed to the public, but with a few key details. Unfortunately, I can't show the trailer. They will copyright strike or even take down my channel. However, some of the differences include, and I guess I will give a spoiler warning here, again, even though it's a trailer, a look at Grand Admiral Thrawn's face, more shots on Lothal, including a really cool one where Sabine is driving down that highway from the Rebels premiere, another shot where Sabine is using Ezra's lightsaber to fight off Shin, the new Darksider, and the focus of today's video, a shot quite reminiscent of Akira, which shows Sabine sliding on a motorcycle under a vehicle. I initially watched this trailer in 360p and my eyes immediately perked up, but I thought I was wrong. I found out that there's a higher quality version of the video. I double checked, and yeah, some of you who are ship fans might recognize this scene. I've got to include it in this video. It's a risk I'll take. One out of, everything I've talked about. This to me looks like an E-Wing, and in fact, I'm almost certain that's what it is. I posted my findings yesterday on Twitter. A ton of people agreed, and the more I look, the more certain I am, especially when I watch it in motion, which again, unfortunately, I just can't share here. For those who don't know, the E-Wing was a ship in Star Wars Legends. Canonically, it was introduced during about the same time period as Ahsoka, Thrawn's campaign really, but which was more prominent in later works, especially Dark Empire. However, if a character needed a ship, I remember, for example, Anakin Solo in the New Jedi Order, there was a chance it would be an E-Wing, and these are really cool vessels. They were intended to be the replacement for the X-Wing. They never ended up really doing that, but they were the New Republic's first really unique starship design, and they came with a host of upsides and downsides, which I've talked about in a prior video. I actually commissioned a full animation for the E-Wing, and if you compare it to what we got in the trailer, you can see what's different and what's the same. The biggest missing feature of the E-Wing as it appears in Ahsoka is the cannon. It's hard to tell. It does look like there are guns on the wings. However, the E-Wing in Star Wars Legends had a feature that I personally really didn't like, a cannon mounted on top of the ship right over the cockpit. Now, there are issues with how do you get in the cockpit. You can pretty easily, explain around that, but just the general look and having a gun constantly firing right over where you sit never made sense to me. So I'm really happy that they've removed it from this. Otherwise, I actually do prefer this look of the E-Wing compared to what I put out. There are a few key differences, mostly in the forward angular nature of the fuselage, and I actually really like this. I posted this on Twitter, but the E-Wing to me was always such a cool vessel when I was a kid growing up looking at pictures of it, because it was similar enough to the X-Wing that you could see the design similarities, but different enough that it felt like it came from another era. And I get that feeling when looking at this ship. I guess the only way I could put it is, to me, the X-Wing always felt really grounded in the 70s. The E-Wing felt like something out of the early 80s, which I think is appropriate given the fact that it's supposed to be, a technological evolution compared to the X-Wing. Taking a closer look at the ship, and again, we're obviously working on not the best video quality, it does look like there could be blue striping on it, indicating that maybe this is a New Republic ship. But about the topic of this video, other than just the fact that the E-Wing is here, this is a marked departure, as we've seen really over the past 2 years, from the prior stance of Lucasfilm. When it came to the sequel trilogy, it was pretty clear that Disney wasn't really going to be pulling from Legends, although they ended up making a very similar plot to Dark Empire when you consider everything holistically. A giant super weapon devastates the New Republic. Palpatine resurrected has a secret fleet of super ships. The New Republic again becomes the Rebel Alliance. I think you get the idea. But I mean, this was definitely to the detriment of the film quality. Even if you believe that Star Wars should be written and the vision specifically of whoever's brought on to direct and write the movie, rather than looking back to the expanded universe and, using Thrawn as the sequel trilogy villain, there was still a lot of really, really great stuff worth pulling from. The E-Wing is probably the perfect example because this design is better than literally any of the new good guy starship varieties introduced in the sequel trilogy, and I can say that confidently because they didn't really introduce any aside from background ships shown during the Battle of Exegol. E.C. Henry has a really good video about what makes Star Wars design Star Wars. I'd be curious to hear what he thinks about the E-Wing, but one thing he references the fact that the sequel trilogy really saw the first time that the universe reused the general look look of ships. Usually you see a form of evolution as time progresses, but the Resistance A-Wing is, from a broad point of view, almost indistinguishable from the traditional A-Wing. Same when it comes to Imperial ships. The E-Wing would have worked perfectly in Episode 7. I think it's a design that, especially when fully realized like this, looks pretty much as good as an X-Wing, a Y-Wing, an A-Wing, etc. It fits right in with those other ships. I know some Star Wars Legends fans don't want Disney touching the universe because they'll feel like it'll ruin their stories. I guess I understand that point of view. I'm personally not one of those people, however. Star Wars Legends, I wish it was continued. I wish it was still going, but it's just not. I can't change that. And even if they made the worst version of Thrawn ever, it won't impact at all my enjoyment of the Legends character. Just like with Indiana Jones 4, I didn't hate that movie really, but it wasn't as good as the prior three. When I think about Indiana Jones, you know, the fourth one doesn't really factor in so much. And I find it exciting that we're seeing these things brought to live action for the first time. If not exactly as they were, although the E-Wing is pretty close, at least in a new form. A great example would be the Dark Trooper from The Mandalorian. It was different than Dark Troopers in Star Wars Legends, but a pretty similar idea, which is cool. And I'm a fan of them reincorporating things from Legends into canon. I'm probably going to be watching either way. I do feel like these things being brought in have a good chance of enhancing my enjoyment of the storyline, but I'm also not somebody who hates the new shows outright. I really love The Mandalorian, so having things that I like from other shows brought into that, you know, it's a recipe for success, at least for me. To me, there's always special about seeing things brought to live action for the first time. Like, I loved Star Wars Rebels. It's really exciting seeing those characters brought to live action. However, I've loved the E-Wing for a lot more, and I always figured that Rebels would sort of make the jump eventually. It happened as early as Rogue One on a limited scale. The E-Wing, I never thought it would make it. Same with the Dark Troopers, same with the Corran Horn reference in Obi-Wan. So this all gets me very excited, and it makes me feel like hopefully Disney is looking back at the past, realizing what worked, and trying to incorporate it when they can. But I know in some circles it's a bit of a controversial thought, so I look forward to reading your opinions down in the comments. Till next time, be safe and may the Force be with you.